Today, we begin the book of 1 Samuel. I will read key passages, and I encourage you to read the full chapters on your own. The full reading reference is provided for you below. Now, as we enter Samuel, 1 Samuel, God begins preparing another key figure in Israel's history. While Ruth quietly revealed God's providence in preserving the royal line, 1 Samuel reveals how God raises a faithful prophet, priest, and judge who will prepare Israel for the transition from the period of the judges to the monarchy. Chapter 1 introduces us to Elkanah and his family. 1 Samuel 1:1-5, we meet Elkanah, Samuel's father. He was a descendant of the priestly line of Levi. Samuel would one day serve as a priest and become Israel's final judge. Each year, Elkanah faithfully traveled to Shiloh to worship and offer sacrifices to the Lord at the tabernacle. Elkanah had two wives, Hannah and Peninnah. Hannah had no children because the Lord had kept her from conceiving, while Peninnah had sons and daughters. Now, although taking another wife sometimes happened when the first marriage remained childless, polygamy or bigamy was never God's perfect design for marriage. During this time, Eli served as high priest at Shiloh, while many of the priestly responsibilities had been turned over to his sons, Hophni and Phinehas. In 1 Samuel 1:6-8, Phinehas continually provoked Hannah because she had no children. Year after year, Hannah wept and could not eat. Elkanah loved Hannah deeply and tried to comfort her, but even a loving husband could not remove the burden she carried. In 1 Samuel 1:9-18, Hannah entered the tabernacle and poured out her heart before the Lord. She prayed that if God would give her a son, she would dedicate him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor would ever touch his head. Does that sound familiar? Like Samson, Samuel would live under a lifelong Nazarite dedication. Now, while Hannah prayed silently, Eli watched her lips moving and assumed she was drunk. Hannah respectfully explained that she was not drunk, but deeply distressed and pouring out her soul before the Lord. Eli then blessed her, saying, "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him." Hannah received that blessing with gratitude and left encouraged. In 1 Samuel 1:19-20, the Lord remembered Hannah. The same God who had kept her from conceiving now opened her womb. She gave birth to a son and named him Samuel because she had asked the Lord for him. Sometimes God delays his answer, but his timing, y'all, is always perfect. In 1 Samuel 1:21-28, after Samuel was weaned, Hannah fulfilled her vow. She brought him to Shiloh and presented him to the Lord. She did exactly what she had promised. Chapter 2 opens with one of the greatest songs of praise in Scripture. In 1 Samuel 2:1-10, Hannah worshiped the Lord for his holiness, sovereignty, justice, and salvation. She recognized that God humbles the proud, lifts up the humble, and rules over all the earth. Her song points forward to Mary's song of praise in Luke chapter 1, where another miraculous birth would announce God's saving plan. In 1 Samuel 2:11, Samuel remained at Shiloh and began serving before the Lord. What follows is a striking contrast. 1 Samuel 2:12-17, Eli's son Hophni and Phinehas are described as wicked men who had no regard for the Lord. They abused the sacrifices, taking portions God had not authorized and treating the Lord's offerings with contempt. In 1 Samuel 2:18-24, while corruption surrounded him, Samuel faithfully served the Lord. Meanwhile, Hophni and Phinehas committed sexual immorality with the women serving the entrance of the temple. Eli confronted his sons, saying, "No, my sons, the report I hear among the Lord's people is not good." But he failed to remove them from the priesthood or stop their rebellion. His rebuke was weak, and his discipline never matched the seriousness of their sin. In 1 Samuel 2:25-26, Samuel continued growing in favor with both the Lord and with the people. Faithfulness, as we know, can flourish even in the middle of spiritual darkness. In 1 Samuel 2:27-36, an unnamed man of God delivered a message of judgment to Eli. The Lord declared that Eli had honored his sons above God himself. Because Eli refused to deal with their sins, judgment would come upon his household. Leadership carries responsibilities, as we know, and God holds leaders responsible and accountable for what they permit as well as for what they practice. Chapter 3 begins with an important observation. The word of the Lord was rare in those days. Visions were not widespread. Now, God had not stopped speaking because he had changed. The people had drifted far from him. Yet when God was ready to speak, he called the young boy in 1 Samuel 3, 2-9. The Lord called Samuel during the night. 3 times Samuel ran to Eli, thinking Eli called him. Finally, Eli realized it was the Lord. He instructed Samuel, "If he calls you again, says, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" Notice that scripture says Samuel did not yet know the Lord because the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. Now, this does not mean that the word of the Lord was not there. It does not even mean that Samuel was not saved. It means he had not yet personally experienced the Lord speaking to him. In 1 Samuel 3:10-14, the Lord called again. Samuel answered, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." God then revealed the coming judgment of Eli's household because of the ongoing wickedness of his sons and Eli's refusal to restrain them. The next morning, Samuel was afraid to tell Eli everything the Lord had said, but Eli insisted. Samuel faithfully delivered the entire message, and Eli replied, "He is the Lord. Let him do what he thinks is good." 1 Samuel 3 closes with these words. The Lord was with Samuel as he grew up, and he let none of Samuel's words fall to the ground. All Israel recognized that Samuel had been confirmed as a prophet of the Lord. The Lord continued revealing himself through his word. Now, what do these chapters teach us? God hears the prayers of the humble. God's delays are never God's denials. Faithfulness is possible even in corrupt times. Leaders are accountable for what they allow. God still calls those who are willing to listen. The Lord raises faithful servants to accomplish his purposes. Now, let's connect all of this across scripture. Hannah's dedication of Samuel recalls Samson's lifelong dedication in Judges 13 and the Nazarene vow in Numbers 6. Hannah's song points forward to Mary's praise in Luke chapter 1, 46-55. God's judgment on Eli reminds us that leaders are accountable before him. James chapter 3 and verse 1. And Samuel's call reminds us of Jesus' word in John 10:27. My sheep listen to my voice. I know them and they follow me. Now, I'm encouraging you to read 1 Samuel chapters 1-3 in full. Watch God answer Hannah's prayer. Watch Samuel faithfully serve while corruption surrounded him. And watch God call a young servant who is willing to listen. The story continues tomorrow.